Welcome to the beginning of Nod-Krai Exordia. Technically, this is the third episode, but shut up. This is the beginning from now on. I'm adding the Moon Sisters to the list, and there's a reason why. If you're new to this channel, hello, welcome. This series that I created on this channel, the Nod-Krai Exordia, is meant to be a series to introduce the factions that will be heavily involved in Nod-Krai. The third episode was supposed to be the Fatui, but knowing MiHoYo, they more often than not add a random trailer filled with a huge amount of lore. So for today's video, I'll be introducing the Three Moon Sisters instead. Now, I know they're not necessarily a faction, let alone introduced in the Scryglass, but because they're the integral part of Nod-Krai and we got a very decent amount of information from the special program, I thought it would be great to put them in this list as well. With that said, don't forget to give this video a like and comment so the channel can be noticed by the algorithm. My name is Nod-Krai and I make lore and commentary videos on this channel to keep you company. But before that, a friendly reminder that Nod-Krai is finally on the horizon. Llama will be the premium support for Bloom teams while Flints will be an electro-charged DPS. Both of them introduced a new mechanic called the Lunar Reaction, a mechanic that will enhance the pre-existing elemental reactions to a stronger version of themselves. If you need extra promo gems to pull for them, then allow me to introduce you to Loot Bar. Loot Bar is a reliable site for a fast, secure, and super reliable top-up experience for your Genesis Crystal. Additionally, they provide 25% discounts compared to normal prices in-game. Once you start your top-up, they will only ask for your UID, nothing else, so your privacy is guaranteed, and your items will arrive to your account in less than 2 minutes. If you're playing on PlayStation 5 or Xbox, they're available for both of them as well. Over 20,000 Trustpilot reviews are showing their satisfaction after using Loot Bar, and if you have any problem with your transaction, their customer service is available around the clock to help you out. Other than Genshin Impact, Loot Bar is also available for other games as well, such as Honkai Star Rail, Wuthering Waves, Zenless Zone Zero, etc. Click the link in the description below and register to get an additional 10% coupon that can be combined with all other discounts. Now let's continue to the content. Nod-Krai Exordia, the beginning. The Three Moon Goddesses. We'll be doing this a bit differently from the other videos. Usually I would give you a brief introduction of what the faction is and introduce all of the known members, but because there's no one that I can introduce other than Columbina, this video will give you history on what the Three Moon Sisters are. We'll do the theory section at the second half of this video. Just for heads up, there will be small speculation along the way, but you'll be able to figure them out yourself from the way I speak. Back before the Heavenly Principles came, there once was a dragon named Nibelang. When Teyvat was born, Nibelang was born along with it, and there came the 7 dragon sovereigns. Whether the sovereigns was created by Nibelang or they were created along with the creation of Teyvat, so far there's no concrete information on that, but we do know that Nibelang is the supreme ruler of Teyvat, while the dragon sovereigns led the world under Nibelang's rulership, holding the 7 elemental authorities that we now know as the 7 elements in this current day. In any case, Teyvat used to be civilizations for the dragons to live in, and Nibelang used to be depicted as a white dragon before he was corrupted by the abyss. One day, a voyager from afar came to Teyvat. This voyager is tasked to charge civilizations that are fated to perish across the cosmos and was duty-bound to never interact with any of these civilizations. She one day came across Teyvat and was awestruck by Nibelang's will that shined the brightest out of anything she ever witnessed throughout the cosmos. Knowing the world's inevitable demise, the Voyager approached Nibelang and asked him to journey among the stars with her and abandon his people. Obviously, Nibelang refused, but he promised the Voyager that one day he and his dragons will journey among the stars. It's also implied that the two became friends after that conversation. Now this is where the Moon Sisters came into play. After the Voyager left, Nibelang starts working along with his people. In the Little Body questline, it is revealed by Kukulkan that the Tonatiuh was meant as a space elevator for the dragons to reach beyond the stars. It's also the reason why we see some symbolism of the 3 moons above it. Speaking of the moons, it is revealed in the Moonlit Ballad of the Night that Nibelang created the 3 Moon Sisters. It's heavily implied in the bureau that you can find in Otkanatlan and in Shuquatl's grave that the 3 Moon Sisters were created in Otkanatlan, or more specifically, Chichen Uchtoka, before it became the city that we know today. During the creation of the moons, it is said in the Nod-Krai concept webpage that the remaining of the remnants that failed to ascend became to the land we now know as Nod-Krai. This makes a lot of sense because in the map, Nod-Krai is directly above Otskanatlan, supporting the theory that the moons were indeed created in that city. In the Fractured Halo, it is revealed the reason he created them was to rule the dragons under his stead while he is away. These three moons are known as the Eternal Moon, the Iridescent Moon, and the Frost Moon. They are known with other names and you might know them as Arya, Sonnet, and Kanan. In Alice's note in the Moonlit Ballad of the Night, they're known as Alaros, Solnari, and Kanan. While it's not confirmed, the two of them are depicted as humanoid while the Frost Moon is likely depicted as a fox. After that, Nibelang left for unknown reasons, leaving the Moon Sisters as Tevat's rulers while he was away. One day, shadow starts to pour over the sky, likely referring to the planet that will soon meet its demise as per the Voyager's prophecy, or the Heavenly Principles finally made his appearance. It's rather unclear on which it is, but for now, all you need to know is that during this time, the Age of Dragons will soon meet its end. When Xiuquatl and the 11th Sovereign Ruler visited the Three Moon Sisters personally, asking for their help, the sisters did not answer them, or rather they could not answer them. Each and every sister's palace halls, the two dragons were met with silence and no answer. When the Heavenly Principles came and finally took over Tevat, the Moon Sisters ruled under them and the dragons saw this as a betrayal for very obvious reasons. However, it's implied many times that the sisters were forced to be ruled under the Heavenly Principles and not within their own will. It's the same with the angels who are forced to follow the Heavenly Principles, and there are strong implications that these angels are strongly connected with the moon. Now, this one is based on the Moonlit Bamboo Forest and Records of Jueyun, but as of now, both these books' credibility starts to dwindle because the true history behind them starts to unravel. But considering they're more of a storybook than an actual history, we can safely say that they're quite accurate, something like The Man of Lithin where the book foreshadows the final act of the Little Body questline. Anyways, it is said that during their rulership, likely before and after the Heavenly Principles came, they are said to ride their silver carriage to govern the land, changing roles 3 times a month. The three moons fell in love with the morning stars and they share their love equally. Considering the morning star is said to be plural, it's possible that they are rather a metaphor or their love is not even to a certain entity, but to objects in the sky. But there's also a chance that the morning star is another entity called the Solar Chariot, a god that is said to have reawakened during the Archon War and fly back to the sky after being unable to witness such a bloodshed. But it is also said to have been an object in the Vermilion Hereafter artifact set. Around 400 years after the Heavenly Principles triumph against the dragons, the world is bound to 4 shackles, likely referring to the 4 shades, given they are the embodiment of rules of life, death, time, and space. The 7 elemental authorities from the Dragon Sovereigns are stolen by the Heavenly Principles, and the Light Realm is refracted to 7 elements that we now know today, with the Phlogiston as the basis. Considering the Kuvaki is said to be the original light from the Light Realm, we can safely assume that the Kuvaki was also used to refract the elements as well. The Golden City of Hyperborea was also found during this time, and according to Enjo, the civilizations of that time were unified. Considering that's the case, Hyperborea seems to be a part of that unified civilizations, with the Salfindaknir, Vermuvria, the Old Natlan, Civilization Under the Chasm, and Enkanomia are likely part of it as well because most of them are guided either by the angels or the shades. For example, Renova helped the people of Old Natlan to fix their ley lines, and Isteroth served the people of Enkanomia as their goddess. Whether they helped them willingly or not, we have no idea on that. But it is implied that Renova was punished after doing so. The people of Hyperborea worshipped the moon as their deity, and the angels were guiding humanity as the envoys of the Heavenly Principles. It is said that the crowns that the angels wore are considered as their sign of love to humanity, but in reality, it is said that these crowns are worn in order to mandate the nation. It could even be the Heavenly Principles' device to control the angels because during the arrival of the Voyager in the youth's body, the 3 moons witnessed the act of rebellion that the first angel and the youth were about to do. The first angel's crown shattered in the process, and it is said that the moons were considered to have something far more audacious than the two. It's rather unclear whether the moons and the first angel worked together or not, as in willingly or not, but it is implied that at least the Frost Moon was the most involved in this act of rebellion. She cast her radiance towards the artisans of Hyperborea, creating small creatures called the Snowland Fae. Considering Belitzar, the first Cryo Archon, is the king of this phase, he likely lived during this era as well. Now, when I read the first angel's words here, at first I didn't think of it that much, but it seems that the first angel created the Snowland Phase to bring everyone, humans and maybe even the dragons, to leave Tevat. However, this of course angered the heavenly principles as he cast a celestial nail to Hyperborea. The first angel was cursed to become a Seelie along with her race, while the Voyager and the youth were left ambiguous. In the records of Juayun, it is said that the angel, the Voyager and the youth have their memories completely wiped. Considering the nails were implied to have been cast at the same time according to the staff of Scarlet Sands, this could mean that the nails were casted for two reasons. 1. To repel the abyss that Nibalam brought to the world, and 2. As the punishment for the angels, because it's heavily implied that all of the angels were present in all of the civilizations to guide humanity. The three moons are implied to have fought against each other. 2 were completely shattered as the eternal moon brought flood to the world, while the iridescent moon's crimson shadow fell to the sea, while the frost moon was the only one left standing, devoid of life, but her will still remained according to Skirk. In the Moon Piercer, it is said that the Frost Moon was so overcome in sorrow that she refused to leave her palace since then. The Sun Chariot that the Morning Stars piloted was implied to have fallen during the same time as the Three Moons' death, creating the chasm that we now see today. The surviving people of Hyperborea then left to the remnants of the moon that failed to ascend. According to Lama's anecdote, she and the people of the Frost Moon Scions grew in a tower created by the moon, and that tower could likely be this tower. It's heavily implied in the Luna 1 teaser that this particular tower seems to be related to this place here, in which I have very high suspicion that Zhongli is likely related due to how his pillars look a lot like them. Maybe not necessarily connected as in Zhongli is the moon and all, but he likely has some sort of association with the state architecture. Maybe because he depicts himself as a dragon, which is why he has the striking resemblance towards the Sacred Source technology, or even he himself related to the moon because his appearance was around 6,000 years ago when the Great War of Vengeance happened. He could even be one of the moon remnants, but again, that's heavy copium. But either way, it's important to note that Lama was raised in this tower that was created by the moon goddess, and somehow it really looks a lot like the Spiral Abyss. We'll talk about the Spiral Abyss later. Something interesting in Lama's anecdote is that it states there might be the truth in the saying of humans could never build a tower to reach the heavens. This could refer to two things. Either the Frost Moon Scions are trying to create a tower that can reach the moon goddess, or 2, referring to what happened with the first angel and the Voyager where they are trying to bring the city up to the heavens. Now that we're done with the canon lore, let's get into the theory heavy section. But before we continue, do note that everything in this video took a lot of time and effort in editing and research, so be sure to give this video a like and comment because that lets the channel to get pushed by the algorithm and also lets me know that I'm doing a good job. With that said, let's continue. In Nod-Krai's Life Symphony, it is heavily implied that the Frost Moon was punished by the heavenly principles. The Frost Moon was said to have been bound and humiliated, and while I don't think the lyric itself is quite literal, it could probably imply that while the heavenly principles cast the nail after the War of Vengeance has ended, he also punished the Frost Moon for being heavily involved in the act of rebellion. This could heavily imply that the fight between the sisters are not necessarily them fighting against each other, but rather the two are trying to save their third sister. If you think about it, this made a lot of sense because the moons were said to cycle their rulership 3 times a month. Presumably they changed their role once every 10 days. So while the Frost Moon was being punished, the other two came and abandoned their rule to govern the planets in cycle and might have crashed in the process, causing them to shatter. That or they were eventually destroyed by the heavenly principles, which, to be fair with you all, I personally don't believe that these two are the stories of how it happened, but either way, I believe that the other sisters were trying to save their sister and ended up dying in the process. That's the point that you need to know. At the end of the song, the Frost Moon seems to be calming her people down, letting them know that one day a new moon will rise in her stead and overthrow the heavenly principles' reign, sharing her love equally to those who still yearn for the moon, whether it's the humans or dragons alike. Before we get into Columbina, I want to put a heavy, audacious theory, if that makes sense, on the eternal moon and the iridescent moon. These two are the entities with the least information anyway, but I thought it would be fun to do a little bit of theory crafting with them. Some parts here are copium, but I do believe there are a little bit of truth in them. So, the moment the eternal moon shattered, there could be connections with A and Makoto because both of them kinda appear out of nowhere. I mean, sure, they are said to be the purest form of lightning, but what does that even mean? Both of them are the embodiment of eternity, and the two have strong resemblance towards the moon behind their design. In A's plane of euthymia, there is moon symbolism all over the place, likely referring to her connection towards the moon and how the moon is her ideal. Her fourth eye, her echo, also hinted her connection towards the moon, and it describes that her only companions are moonlit shades. Now that I think about it, I kinda wonder, instead of the statue of omnipresent God being just a mashup of the Shades feature, what if this statue is the eternal moon? I know, crazy right, but hear me out. You might not know this, but it seems that the triquetra symbolism in Teyvat and in the Shades are a lot more clear now because rather than it being shown as the sign of authority, it seems that the triquetra is a symbolism towards the three moon sisters. I actually mentioned this in my last video because Neuvillette and Lama have the same triquetra on them, and both have one thing in common. Neuvillette is a dragon sovereign, therefore by blood, he is tightly connected to the moon. Lama is a moon chanter of the Frost Moon Scions, therefore by association, she is tightly connected to the moon. Flint's also has this symbol when you use his skill, likely his power that also derives from the moon because of him owning a moon wheel. Not only that, all of their triquetras are formed by having the three circles around them, so it's possible that the Shades and the Heavenly Principles got some of their power from the moon as well. The iridescent moon is said to have the Crimson Moon sunk under the Abyssal Sea, and we know that the people of Crimson Moon Dynasty worshipped the Crimson Moon. I always believed that Renova is likely related to the Crimson Moon, or she is likely even the Crimson Moon herself. Renova's connection towards the Crimson Moon Dynasty with her death symbolism all over her seems to be reminiscent of Arlecchino's symbolism where her Pale Moon Bloodfire also came from this dynasty. That being said, what if the Shades themselves are also created by using the power of the moon, and the Heavenly Principles likely coerced the Moon Sisters to do so while the dragons visited the Moon Sisters personally? This could be the reason why they can't answer them. And if you remember in the Before Sun and Moon, it is said that the Primordial One, or the Heavenly Principles in this case, created 4 shades of himself. And when I remember that, it makes me wonder how he even got the power to do that. And so my proposal right now is that the Shades were created using the power from the 3 Moon Sisters, and the Heavenly Principles likely coerced them to do so. As a result, the Moon Sisters are unable to answer them. But again, copium. As for the Frost Moon, I say she is likely depicted as a fox because there are strong connections between foxes and the moon, specifically in the Fox in the Dandelion Sea, where a fox can shapeshift herself into a human in the Sea of Dandelions under the moonlight. It is also said in the moonlit bamboo forest that the wolves are the remaining creatures that will forever remember what happened during the destruction of the Moon Sisters, which could heavily imply that Boreas got his power from the Frost Moon herself, or at least one of the 3. Somehow, I wondered if Mondstadt's terrain is similar to Nod-Krai, where some part of it might be part of the moon, just like Zhongli's pillar that eerily looks like the pillar in the Frost Moon Scions. But anyway, let's continue to the new moon herself. By the time this video was made, the timeline is right around clear, but Columbina was born in the remnants of that failed moon that is now known by the current people of Teyvat as Nod-Krai 500 years ago. Whether she was born immediately or not, Both are plausible because the remnants of the moon that failed to ascend could likely be the fourth moon, or Columbina could likely be the will of the frost moon that survived because in the Luna 1 teaser, she specifically mentioned that she wished to return to the moon that belongs to her. Also, considering that the frost moon scions are worshipping the frost moon, then Columbina could likely be that will of the frost moon that survived. Either way, both are very possible because both still match with the description of the new moon in the webpage, where she could be born from the ashes as she is the moon that failed to ascend, or she could be reborn as the incarnation of the frost moon as the new moon. Before we explore each possibility, let's familiarize ourselves with the main character of Nod-Krai, Columbina. Ever since Moonlit Ballad of the Night was released, Columbina is introduced as the Moon Maiden. However, it's worth noting that the name Columbina is not her real name either. For perspective, think of it like the previous harbingers that we ever encountered. For example, La Signora's real name is Rosaline, Child's real name is Ajax, Scaramouche's real name is left unknown but usually referred to as Kunikuzushi, Arlecchino's real name is Peruware, and Capitano's real name is Train. Some names are still left unconfirmed, like Sandron's real name could likely be Marianne from the Narcissus Cruise questline, and De Torre is heavily implied to be Zandik, as the Wanderer heavily disliked that name when you try to name him that. That being said, Columbina's real name is still left unknown, but according to the Portuguese translation, the statue of the new moon is named as the Statue of Kutar, and this statue is said to be Columbina's past life. That being said, Columbina's real name could likely be Kutar, but it's rather unconfirmed whether this name is before she joined the Fatui or before the Frost Moon died. Prior to being the Moon Maiden that we know today, she once served the Fatui as the third harbinger, meaning her power rivals the gods. Considering she is not yet the new moon, this could explain why she is the third rank instead of the first. But at some point of time, she left the Fatui, likely leaving in order to serve the goddess of the Frost Moon Scions, or in order to prevent the Veil of Lies from sleeping as per the Moonlit Ballad of the Night trailer. Whatever the case, Columbina leaving the Fatui heavily displeased them as they are trying to obtain her back no matter the cost. Now let's explore the possibilities I just mentioned between the two. Just for heads up, the next part of this video is rather heavy speculation and almost into fanfiction territory, so take them with an extra grain of salt. This is the first theory I came up with whenever I mentioned the Moon Sisters and Columbina, because in the Nod-Krai concept webpage, it sort of implied that Columbina was born when the failed moon remnants fell to the world. While it's not stated, her portrait is immediately shown in the next screen as in implying that Columbina is that fourth moon that failed to ascend. It's also stated in the special program that Columbina was born in Nod-Krai, likely referring to her immediately born when the moon fell. According to the Fractured Halo, it is said that each moon has a palace, so the Silver Moon Hall that is mentioned in the special program is likely that fourth moon's palace as well. We just talked about the triquetra being the symbolism of the three Moon Sisters, and what does it have to do with Columbina as the fourth one? Well, there's actually one more place that will be potentially just as important in the Song of Welcome Moon update. You see, ever since Sumeru, they always release new artifacts set at the last few patches of the region that we are in, and it's no different with Nod-Krai and Natlan. Usually, these artifacts are important towards either the next world quest or even the Archon quests themselves. It's also interesting with this one because we got two artifact sets, and usually it's just one. In Sumeru, we got Nim Stream that is essentially a teaser to Narcissus Cruise questline. In Fontaine, we got the Unfinished Reverie that is essentially the teaser for the entirety of Natlan's questline, and in Natlan, we got the finale of the Deep Galleries and Long Night's Oath that is essentially the teaser for the whole Nod-Krai questline. Speaking of finale of the Deep Galleries, we are mentioned that Skirk visited the Spiral Abyss in order to find the Voyager that is presumably missing right now. And in the gate of Spiral Abyss, there's a particular logo on top of it. Instead of a triquetra, it's a four-pointed shape. It's as if there's one more moon that also needs to rise. And also, if you don't know Spiral Abyss's lore, Spiral Abyss is also tied to the moon itself. It's also the reason why the blessing's name is called the Blessing of the Abyssal Moon, and the last 4 stages that usually resets every month is called the Abyssal Moon Spire menu. Not only that, the lore of Spiral Abyss states that there's an ancient empire that created the city underground, so the possibilities are of course either it's Kaenvia or one of the unified civilizations in the past. Both are very possible, but of course, again, the point is that it's the logo on top. From what I get in the Nod-Krai concept webpage, it seems that Nibelung intended to create 4 moons. However, whether the 4th moon is just his test run or it's literally just failed to materialize, 3 moons ended up being created and the last one ended up becoming to what we now know as Nod-Krai. This could even be the reason why Columbina joined the Fatui to begin with, because they promised her that she will one day rise as the new moon of Teyvat. After all, if you remember the Simulanka event, the final world quest was the Traveler and Paimon creating the 4th moon in order to guide the residents of Simulanka to return home. There are 3 goddesses of Simulanka, the same as in Teyvat where are 3 moon goddesses. We help the residents by creating a moon to guide them home, and the main point of the Song of Welcome Moon is also to rise the new moon to the sky. I always believe that Simulanka's event foreshadowing is not over yet, especially the Tenochtitlan event doesn't really feel like a foreshadowing event like the last ones. I mean, of course, there are small foreshadowing like how each part of the island are different games, just like Nod-Krai where we will meet different factions all together. But there's also one more, but we'll talk about it in a bit. But again, Columbina's return to Nod-Krai could likely relate to her ascension as the new moon, and I have strong suspicion that Mondstadt could be one of the moon remnants that failed to ascend. In any case, let's talk about the next theory. So I think this is a more acceptable theory in the community, where Columbina is likely the will of the Frost Moon that survived until this day. Mind you, when I made my last video about the livestream analysis and this video, I was torn between the two because both of them are very possible. There are strong implications too that Columbina is the reincarnation of the Frost Moon because of how the dialogues in the Luna trailer imply her to be one. For one, the Frost Moon Science has a prophecy that the Frost Moon will be back, and while it did come true, it's also not really, likely referring to Columbina's current form. The statue of the new moon is said to be Columbina's former form, likely referring to her as the Frost Moon before she was punished by the heavenly principles. In the Life Symphony, it is said that the new moon will rise in the Frost Moon's stead, likely referring to herself being reincarnated as the new moon. Not only that, the statue seems to resemble Columbina, which could imply that she is the Frost Moon. I feel like this one is extremely self-explanatory with how the game portrays her to be. However, I've been playing this game long enough, and so have you. And you know that Genshin's trailer is full of misleading storytelling. While writing this script, I also tried to think what is the possibility between the two. And then I came up with an idea that Columbina and the Frostmoon's will could likely have merged into one. Let me explain. I already told you before that Tenochtitlan doesn't really feel like a foreshadowing event. I mean, there is, like what I just told you earlier, the game seems to be a foreshadowing for the factions that we will meet in Nod-Krai. However, there's one more crucial one that I feel like is a very strong foreshadowing: the Ashas. So for what you need to know, the Ashas are the combination of the souls and the monitus that are in Tenochtitlan. According to Fenty, the moment he blew Marajivari away from the timeline, some of the souls that are unable to return to the ley lines merge with the monitus and then become Ashas. So what does it have to do with Columbina? You see, the way the game implies how the Eternal Moon and the Iridescent Moons are completely gone is by having them shattered, becoming remnants behind the false sky. But in the New Moon's case, her case is that she failed to ascend, or in other words, she is incomplete. You see, for something to fail to materialize means they likely lack some sort of property to make them work properly. For example, you need a baking powder if you want to make bread, otherwise they'll become stodgy. There has to be something that lacks in Columbina, and in order for her to become a new moon, she needs a certain property that she lacks in. I dub it's the people's beliefs because the 3 moons were made by Nibelung using the secret source technology, not materialized by the dragon's beliefs. Because she is implied to have been born here, it means that the moon is not yet dead, but rather a powerless moon, if that makes sense. Or, if I can be a little bit more audacious here, an empty husk. Think of it like Layla. He is a spirit duffer in the Masters of the Night Wind, but he eventually became a shaman after he became Auroron's disciple. It could be the same case with Columbina as well, and in order for her to become a new moon, the Frost Moon's will is likely involved in teaching her, or maybe even put her will in Columbina's body. You see the Asha's foreshadowing here? This could explain why Llamas say the moon goddess has indeed returned, but also not yet, because Columbina, who is the new moon, is not yet ready to fully become a new moon. However, the Frost Moon has indeed returned, but if she isn't in Columbina just yet, she could likely have at least spoken to her. Now that we made it this far, I propose that the two theories are likely connected. Columbina is likely still that failed moon remnant that failed to ascend, and she was born the moment that failed moon remnants became the land we now know as Nod-Krai. She yearns to ascend to the sky since then, and after the Frost Moon's punishment, she promised her people that she will be back, and in order to do this, her will has survived and likely inside Columbina. Either that, or the Frost Moon heard the prayers of her people in the Frost Moon Scions. She likely contacted Columbina in one way or another in order to become the new moon of Teyvat, and in response, the new moon goddess left Fatui in order to fulfill the Frost Moon's final wish.